Okay, thanks a lot. So if you come here to hear how perfect and easy the migration to Oracle 19c is, then I think you can start listening to another stream. But if you want to avoid the same mistakes I've done and the errors I had, so please stay to these Tales of 19c migrations. This presentation will be mostly about the surprises I had during the project and my clients, and I will show how I did prepare the migrations, the choices I made, and what I consider the most important. And please feel free to post questions, and then later at the end I will answer them. So welcome, I'm Miguel Anjo, Senior Consultant at Trivadis, as Flavio said. I've been managing Oracle databases since the turn of the century. When I arrived to Switzerland, I spent at the beginning 5 years at CERN before joining Trivadis in 2010. And yeah, I spent half of the time on the mountains, either hiking or skiing or the cycling, and also a lot of time traveling. And one of my mottos is next stop where, because every weekend I have to think, where should I go next? I have a Twitter which I don't use so much, and I have a blog where time to time I post some information about what I discover and some knowledge I acquired, and I feel that it's interesting to others. I work for Trivadis. So Trivadis at 25th anniversary last year is one of the biggest companies dedicated to data management, with very good Oracle specialists in Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. There is also one office in Romania now. We give lots of training. 4,000 participants each year attends our trainings. We have more than 300 SLAs with clients. We are more than 700 people, and it's been a pleasure in the last 10 years to work for Trivadis. And this because the mission of Trivadis is together for a smarter life, because it is important to share the knowledge. And that's also why I'm here at the virtual SOUG doing my first virtual presentation about this migration to 19c. This migration project, it came in a sequence of a new period of my life, and that it makes it quite special. So after living 15 years in Geneva, with my wife, we decided to move to Bern, the capital of Switzerland and also a World Heritage City. And life in Bern is really great. We swim in the river in the summer. We are very close to the mountains, but not every change comes for free. And so there were also a few challenges. At this client where I started, I went there because the internal DBAs left. The DBA who developed most of the automation for the installations left. Another DBA that was with the company for 12 years left. And even though there was a lot of documentation, all of it was in German, which is the fifth language I'm learning, and it takes quite some time. But at the same time, it's good, and I was feeling that I was starting to be responsible to pass the knowledge to future DBAs, which were not so easy to find to my clients. And there were also some other opportunities. So being alone, I could decide myself and how I could improve and simplify the current solution. Was a quick way to learn German, to read German, and also to contribute to a new standard. So what does this client look like? There are about 100 databases running 11.2 and 12.2 Oracle Restart with the ASM on Oracle VM. There is, for maybe half of these databases, there is DataGuard and automatic fast failover, which works really well. It's a quite simple and stable environment. When I arrived, the automatic deployment scripts were working perfect for creating a new, installing and creating a new 11.2 database or 12.2 database. And there were also, or these scripts are based on a mix of a complex automation framework, and also some other scripts were basically copy-paste between scripts, and a lot of commented parts that probably were working in the past and were improved, but was just commented out and not cleaned up. So a good terrain to start with. There was space for improvement, was quite nice. But let's start from the end. For each database which I migrated to 19C, I did one slide with the pre-checks of this database, and after the migration, a follow-up slide with what went well and what needed to be improved for the next migration. So I will start with showing some examples. This example of a slide I did for a pre-check for one application. I call it here SmartApp. What was special with this application was uses a lot of advanced queuing. It needed Java. While checking, I found out there were some user objects that belonging to sys, namely 2 tables on production. The application user had the DBA role. There was no password verification active. There are some underscore parameters and some other parameters which I did not understand why they were set for this application. It was a complete new application for me. So this is where I had to concentrate before doing the migration. Then for this is now a follow-up slide as an example that about the first application I migrated. Let's call it the MariaApp. There were still some errors on the scripts. The Linux image was still not perfect, but this was not done by me. It was done by another team, which I was in contact all the time. I was glad to see that that part, or most of the part of my scripts were working. The clone, the duplicate, the upgrade was working without problems. But during plugging in a PDB on a 19C database, I had a disk, ASM disk group full, and it just corrupted completely the database, and I had to restart the migration again. I found out the ASLs need to be recreated, and at the end I found out also that the connection string was not in the central DNS names of the company, but was hard coded on a file in the application server. For another application, also what was special was that it needed Java on spatial. So I had to document this. For this was a quite small application, so we migrated with Datapump. At the end, I noticed, or better, the user noticed that he could not connect to the application, and this was due to some firewall rule that I had forgot to check. And so after the migration, I had to run to the network team, create an emergency exchange, and add this rule to the firewall. And the users were not happy. They wrote an email to me and my boss in copy. but was a way to learn and to avoid the problem in the future. Also, the post-installation checks were not done immediately, which was not good. It was not problematic, but it was not good. For the OEM repository upgrade, this was a 12.2 upgrade. I did a PDB refresh clone. It was quite fast. First time it failed because I forgot to check the pre-upgrade results and run the fixed script and remove one part that was not installed on 19C. But the biggest problem of this upgrade was the connection, to change the connection string to OEM. So it's not on the database side, but on the OEM side, where I spend most of the time. And a last example was the RMAN catalog. So these are quite small schemas, data pump to migrate, and 2 indexes that were not created by data pump on the migration. But all about this, I will speak later. I see it does not seem so good, all these problems in the migrations, but fortunately, this was the case only with the first migrations that I did. But how does it all start? It was end of 2018 that I start thinking about the migration. At the time, I was alone at the customer. There was a lot of time spent on daily business, but I needed to start thinking about the migration away from 11.2 and 12.2. So one evening on the whiteboard on the office, I started sketching some ideas. I did this mind map, wrote down every piece of the puzzle I had to think about, all the upgrade options that could be used, all the scripts and accessory areas of the upgrade that we should not forget. Other changes that maybe need to be done, like lobs, time zone, character set, all the environments, other decisions about the installation, versions, and so on. So was a good way to start with. And then with all this information, I create a slide deck, a 41 pages document where I wrote all the options, and I wrote what I needed to sell to my client so he could accept the migration to 19C as an important project, and he could also sell to his boss as time spent on me. I compartmentalize everything, as explained all the small details, what needed to be done on each part, what was mandatory, what was recommended, what were the options, what are the upgrade options, either local or remote, what are the advantage and the pros and cons of each of the options. I also did an Excel file with an overview of all the applications. Who is the application owner? What is the character set used? If there are, what are the special components that are used? And also I try to check if this application could be easily upgraded or the application is certified, but this is the step which is still not completed, as many application responsibles cannot answer to the question, and we have to test to make sure that the application works with 19C or not. But this document is still what I printed out and is what I found the most important to have on my desk to check what needs to be done before preparing each upgrade. So having all this, I had to start preparing the DBs. Meanwhile, my client found a DBA, a junior DBA, and this was really a pleasure for me to teach him a lot of Oracle stuff. First thing we start doing, me and this junior DBA, was to run the pre-upgrade checks on each database. All the important information for the upgrade appears on this pre-upgrade check. You can see the underscore parameters that are maybe set on the database and can be removed. You can see information about options and components that are used, about the operations that are mandatory before the upgrade and after the upgrade. Then another important step is to check on the current databases what are the clients that are used. And this because on Oracle 12.2 and 19c, Oracle 10 clients require that you set the parameter on SQLnet or on the server. So before doing an upgrade is already a good opportunity to check if there are some clients, very old clients connected to the database, and maybe profiting of this time to convince the applications to upgrade their client versions. Another important step to do before is to check the password hashes. So we check if there are users that came from maybe Oracle 10 or Oracle 11 database and only have a 10G password hash. These users, without changing their password, cannot connect to a 12.2 database. So this is before doing the upgrade is the time to check which users are in this condition and ask them to reset their passwords so that they will have a 11G or a 12C hash recorded, and then for sure they will be able to connect to the database after the upgrade. Another two things I did before the upgrade was to remove Oracle Workspace Manager. This is not a mandatory step. You don't need to remove it, but also you don't need to keep it. And in all my DBA years, I never saw a client who used this Oracle Workspace Manager. And I always prefer not to have extra options installed on the database that are not used. So here, before the upgrades, I decided to remove the Workspace Manager. And on the 11.2 databases, that is something that comes on the pre-upgrade check results. Remove the DB control repository. And if you don't use the DB control, if you use only Enterprise Manager, then you can do this online without a problem. And last, check the security of the database. Are there users with DBA privilege? Are there users with unlimited table space, which can write in every table space? Back up the ACLs. There's our MetaLink notes, how to do that. Are there firewalls rules that need to be copied to a new server or not? And maybe then plan to use this privilege analysis on 19C if you see that the users have too many privileges that can be removed, but you are afraid of doing right now. But it's a good moment to check if that exists. And was the time for decisions. As was so difficult to find a DBA, my customer fortunately found a second external consultant. And for these decisions, I had a colleague to whom I could speak with. And with that, we decided which upgrade methods to use. And for the 11-sheet databases, we set for 2 upgrade methods. One was using data pump, either export and then import, or direct import from 11 to direct in 19C PDB. And the second upgrade method we decided was using physical data guard and do an upgrade starting from the standby database into 19C, and from this 19C unplug and plug it as a PDB and run this CDB to PDB script. The aim was to have the upgrades done in less than 2 hours with all the pre-checks and all the post operations. So we set up a threshold of 500 gigabytes, and for smaller databases, we use a data pump, and bigger databases, we use these physical standby and upgrade. Why there is now the auto upgrade method, an auto upgrade script that is available on Oracle support site, but we didn't use it because at the time of this decision, the script was really on these early stages, and we preferred not to be the beta testers. For Oracle 12, also the 2 methods, again, the data pump method, and another method was to use this refreshable PDB feature of Oracle 18 and 19C, which allows to create or to duplicate the PDB in 19C and then upgrade this PDB. And if there is a problem in one command, we can easily scratch it and restart again, which makes it really easy to upgrade from 12 to 19C. Other decisions we have done was which version of Linux to use. We decided to use Oracle ASM filter driver to replace UDEV. This already saved us in the meantime from one restore when by mistake we run a dd command as root user on a device, and fortunately ASMFD did not allow that to destroy the disk. We decided to use single tenant CDBs. This decision was done before the license model of 3 PDBs for free arrived, and maybe we will change in the future to use up to 3 PDBs in one CDB, but for the moment it's a single tenant. Use huge pages, which was not the case before and is heavily recommended by Oracle. We decided to stop AWR warehouse because the repository does not support PDBs, and we wanted to keep the installation as simple as possible and the same as possible everywhere, so with the least number of components. And this, while doing this presentation, I found that there is this Oracle Real Application Clusters installed, which is likely not necessary, but it's a very small script, and we left it installed on the 19C as well. We defined standards, so the Oracle Base, Oracle Home, Grid Home, the naming of this Oracle Home and Grid Home, the size of the partitions for the Oracle Home and for the diagnostics, the naming convention for the databases and CDBs and PDBs. And then with all these decisions, I start scripting. At this time, my client had hired a second DBA, so I stopped doing daily business and concentrated on scripting. And when doing the scripts, I had to make sure that this could be easily used by the new DBAs and that they could use all the standards. So the principles I decided on these scripts were that they should be easy to use, reusable, so not only for the full installation of a new database, of a new VM and database, but also to do small parts like create a second database on the same server, enable new targets on the OEM. It should be as automatic as possible and making the least number of questions as possible to the user, and use golden images for the database, so I'm sure that every single installation is the same. So the set of scripts I've created for the software installation, for the database creation, for the migration, some other scripts, and important also some delete scripts, because again, not all installations get through on the first time, and it's good to have a script that cleans up the mess, and so we can start again in a clean state. Example of a script. So to create a VM, one chooses just what wants to do with this VM, if it's for a primary database or a standby for a migration. And based on this first answer, it will install what is necessary and asks what are the database name, and does everything that is needed. Some other how-tos that I need to document on the wiki, and maybe later will be transformed on scripts. And these how-tos, I always have in mind that they should be they should be understandable by the other people. So they are not only for me, even though I forget usually how I have done things the week before, and I also use my own how-tos, but should be useful for colleagues and for future colleagues. And I start the migrations. And this week came with the surprises. First, migration was still on 18C, and lots of logs, ASM logs were being generated, and this was related to ASM agent that was connecting to checking the ASM every second and writing a log. This is solved on 19C. The check interval now is 900 seconds. So no more problem here. I skip it. The second surprise, which we still have, is with the data pump import, and there are a few bugs related to this. We saw it mostly on import from 11 to data pump, that for unique indexes, in some cases, not always, were not created. There were no error on the index creation, or the index was not created, but when it tried to import the index statistics, it complains the index is not there. The unique constraint is created, but not the index. I did not create yet a service request, and just be aware of this issue. Another bug was appeared when some user, after the migration, tried to import some data and got an error that permanent table space cannot be temporary table space. It's quite a surprising error, and is a bug that exists still on 19.7. There is a patch for it, but we decided to use a workaround on our installation or our upgrade script that changes the local temporary table space for every user to the temporary table space, even in case it was by mistake set as system by Oracle. Another annoying error that I had during one migration was just on the last step of the 11.2 migration. So when we, after upgrading the 11.2 to 19C and plugging the as a PDB and before running the CDB to PDB script, so just create pluggable database from the XML using no copy, so data files were not copied. I got ASM disk group full, and this corrupted the data files and XML. Fortunately, I started the migration from the standby, so I could just stop the migration, restart the primary, and prepare everything again. But it's something to know. It requires about 50 gigabytes of space when you plug non-CDB in a new database as a PDB. A funny surprise also happened when after migrating the first databases, I have a colleague that tells me that the automation script is not working on the new upgrades databases. And on checking, we found this, like, for example, we have we have two PDBs on a container, one upgraded and one new PDB. And when we were doing alter session set container to a freshly created PDB, no problem. But if we do the same alter session set container to the upgraded PDB, we have an error. And this comes because we were using 11.2 SQL Plus connecting to a 19C. So the 19C database, and it seems also already from 12.2, you cannot connect from SQL Plus 11.2 and do alter session set container. You got an error. But this is only for upgraded PDBs. For new freshly created, funnily enough, it does not happen. I wanted also to make TFA, to use the TFA that comes installed both in the grid infrastructure and the database home on this pass. And I saw that I could not make it working. So I created a service request. I asked, how can I make, or I can enable, maybe it would be a better word, the version of TFA that comes with the software and not downloaded from Oracle support, and automatic part of the silent installation. The first answer that came from Oracle support was this one. It will be installed under GI Home TFA. Okay, nothing to do with my question. 6 weeks later, after several exchanges, finally, the analyst went to the development team and they let us know that the TFA on Oracle Restart is disabled on 19C. So if you want to use TFA on Oracle Restart on 19C, you have to download from Oracle. One bug more that we had was that some core dumps were being generated and errors on alert log on some upgraded databases. The bug title says that upgrade from 18C to 19C, but no, this also happened with upgraded databases from 11.2 and 12.2. Not always, but after some time it started, and then there are really a lot of logs. There's a workaround to set the AQTM process parameter to 0 and reset it, but we decided to install the patch that is available, and this bug is now fixed finally in the latest release update from Oracle 19.7. And these were the surprises we had with Oracle side. Now, another surprises we had, and already with the cases with three applications that we tried to upgrade, was that the version of supported Oracle version, the supported Oracle versions is hard-coded on the application. So for instance, for this spacewalk application, when we try to upgrade, it says that 19C is not supported. And looking on the internet, found on one forum that it says, yeah, but you can change this file and add the 19C on the parameter, and then it will work. And it does work. Funny enough, for this application, this is an Oracle application, this spacewalk. For the two other applications, we are at the moment waiting that application release a new version because it's not so easy to hack them. Another challenge is we had with the ODAC drivers and the old application code, which is not anymore compatible with Oracle 12.2 or 19C. With applications that use more than one DNS names file, so try to check with every application exactly which DNS names files do they use and where they are located. And also applications that the application owner or responsible already left the company and no one wants to be anymore responsible for the application. And this is where is lots of time spent for preparing an upgrade. But these were not the only surprises we had. January 2020, after the first migrations, was patching time. The release update came and we had to decide what patching strategy we would use. There were two options, in-place patching or out-of-place patching. The in-place patching would be a longer downtime for databases that don't have data guard. That would also imply or would be then best to change the naming convention of Oracle Home to remove the release update number, or out of place patching that makes a quicker or smaller downtime but requires double of the space. And we decided to go with my colleagues to go for out of place patching. This, as I said, requires double of the space, so we also had to change the size of the partitions for the Oracle Home from 50 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes. I must confess I'm still not 100% convinced that is the best solution, but it's the solution we decided for and we are sticking to it for the moment. How this out-of-place patching works: for Oracle Restart, there is now the Opatch auto script that comes in with Opatch, which works really nice, or mostly nice. And this out-of-place is done in 2 steps. You first prepare clone, and this prepare clone copies both Oracle homes to a new folder and patch them, and then a second step, the switch clone, which stops everything and moves the database and the GI and the grid infrastructure to the new home and starts them and runs the data patch at the end. It's quite nice, but there were some surprises, and I see that time is running, so I will go a bit faster. The surprises we had with patching, the first one was that I installed the OGVM patch on the grid home, and then I could not start the grid infrastructure anymore. Lesson learned: use Opatch auto, which knows which patches should be installed in each of the homes. Second was this prepare clone, which starts two processes with 3 gigabytes max size for memory. And on one system where I had not configured huge pages, the system starts swapping because all the memory available of the system was used. I opened a service request to ask if we could reuse this value, but no solution was found. But when used pages are enabled, this does not happen. Another small problem with the prepare clone is that these two processes are copying the Oracle homes to a new folder as fast as it can. And if it's not a standby, there is a database running. And we saw some impact on the performance of the database. So when possible, run it on a standby side. And if it's not possible, if there's no standby, warn the users that there is this preparation being done and there can be some impact on the performance. Another bug was with Opatch util cleanup command, which started to clean up files in the /etc folder. Fortunately, it only deleted what Oracle could delete it, and in our case was only the RMAN client, on the tape client for RMAN. This is now corrected in the Opatch, in the latest Opatch version released this month, and is corrected in a way that it does nothing. So the Opatch is not really correct, but at least it does not delete data. This Opatch auto is very promising. There's two parameters, silent, which is really not documented, but one finds in the Enterprise Manager documentation how to use it. So needs one file that with suffix properties, and one there in this file writes the name of the new Oracle homes for the prepare clone. And there is also one parameter, remote image location, that is promising if we could use a golden image instead of copying from one home to the new one, but only appears on the middleware documentation, and it receives a jar file as an argument, so it's not for Oracle database at the moment. I have a service request open since January, but still no answer. Finally, recommendations. Read the pre-upgrade. It lists what is important, and if you do what is written there, it prevents the majority of the errors. If you can offer the upgrade a new system, I really prefer to upgrade to a new system using the standby mode or the refreshable PDB. You can do independent testing, you can scratch and redo, you can profit to easily upgrade to a new operating system. Use a standard image. It's really easy to create these golden images now with all the patches you need, and start always with the basic 19.3 zip file, so you avoid to having a huge patch storage folder. Do pre-checks and follow-ups of each migration. Check what is special about the database, and at the end check what went wrong, write down what went wrong and what could be improved. And keep track of the project. Your boss will like to have a graph showing how the migration is running, and it will also help to have a global image how the things are going. Unfortunately, I should say that 80% of the migrations at the moment are blocked because the application cannot support the downtime, or the application is not yet certified to use Oracle 19c. And that's it. Happy migrations. So if there are questions, let me know.
So yes, I have one question. did you have some problem after you migrated to 19C in exporting data? Did you test it? Because I heard that there are some problems if you want to do some exports in 90C that it won't work. You have to use parameter to say it's export like 90C and not 19.4.
No, I must say we did not do yet many exports, and this is mostly done. That is yet the daily business. So it's not me that's doing that, but I didn't hear about any problem exporting data from 19C databases. And yeah, for sure, we this was already done, and yeah, we had no problems.
But did you had some performance issue when you upgraded from 11 or 12 to 19C?
No,
or, no,
no performance issues. This was something I was quite afraid at the beginning, as we saw from the migrations from 11.2 to 12.1. Usually, there were quite some problems, but here we migrate. We in this client never used 12.1 databases, and so from 11.2 to 19C or 12.2 to 19C, we didn't experience any performance problem with the database, with any explain plan that went really bad after the migration. No.
Okay. We have one question. Thank you. First of all, we have one question from Lukas Betnarek. He asks, how do you exactly use physical data card to upgrade? Could you please briefly clarify that?
So this physical data card is a method that's already used from 10G to 11G. So what one does is one creates a new physical standby, so it can be a second physical standby if you already have one on a remote server, and at the moment which is running and being synchronized, and at the moment of the upgrade, what you do, you stop the primary, you perform a failover to the standby, and you run an upgrade to 19C, so to a non-CDB architecture, 19C, and then from this you have a 19C database, and on this 19C database, you unplug and plugged on a new CDB, and there is this script CDB to PDB that transforms the architecture to a PDB architecture. So what is great about this about this method is that if you have whatever problem during the upgrade, the only thing you need to do is to restart the primary database to make sure that the DNS names are still pointing to the primary database, and you can redo the migration again later on when you solve the problems.
Okay, perfect. He says, that's the way. In case of failed, you just start primary. Nice one, thanks.
Yeah, no, that is great. Whatever you have a problem, in 2 minutes, the users can use again the database. You just restart the primary, you restart the process. This is really great. I already used this method from 10 to 11G. It's really great.
Okay, perfect. Is there more questions? So if not, then thank you, Miguel, for your presentation and your time.
Thanks a lot.
To see you in the future.
Yep.
At the SmartApp Oracle with some presentations, and who knows, maybe in Portuguese one time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Flavio. And thanks everyone for watching.
So at 11 o'clock, we have our last presentation for this morning, and it will be Paolo. So hope to see you there at 11 o'clock. See you.